Morning has broken, and I'm glad that you've chosen KTN News as always to inform you. Today is woes today, where we keep them honest. We take a critical analysis of the leadership of the day and also the catnip issues that has been facing this week. We shall be looking at a lot of issues, looking at party politics, looking also at the hygiene of the IBC right now. We're facing a constitutional crisis or not, as far as the commissioners are concerned. We shall be looking at also what is happening within the Azimio coalition. Right? Is it crumbling, or will it be holding until 2027? Also, Mount Kenya politics will center the discussion of today, looking at what is happening within the parties there and the coalition, that is Kenya Kwanza coalition as well. Today I've created Festa with Professor Gitila Naituli, who is a governance and policy analyst. Also we have with us Professor Fred Ogola, who is an economist, Professor John Akindiki, who is a governance and policy analyst, and Dr. Barak Muluka, who is a strategic communications advisor. We have a lot that we'll be looking forward to, but I just want to hear their voices this morning, whether it is warmed up for the day, still they have the baritones, or it's a tenor, or it's a soprano early in the morning. How do they sound? Barak, good morning, good to see you.
Morning, good to see you.
All right, I like your regalia this morning, Muluka. Huh? It is branded.
Avoidance
of doubt.
Yes, but I'm very happy to be here with the three professors. Yeah.
Right, so
if
we look.
They're coming for you, they'll not miss.
They'll not miss. Yeah? Muluka is well branded. Right. Okay, good to see you also, Professor Gitila Naituli. Happy to hear. I haven't seen you on this other side of the trucks. Yes, so good to see you. You're looking in the very pink of health, as they say. Right? Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Professor Ogola as well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, my brother.
Yeah, I can see your shining pet is still shining.
Yes.
Yeah, so we don't need to put lights in this studio.
No.
Yeah, your shining pet will always be glowing.
They say the black shines brighter. That's how they advertise one of the brands. They say black shines brighter. Yeah.
Fantastic, and of course I hope that you'll be illuminating and shining on some of the issues that we have today. Right. Also, Professor John Akindiki, good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, pleasure.
You took off last year towards the end. I think maybe some consultancy came your way that kept you busy.
Oh, yeah. I'm back.
You're back.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Let's see how the weather will be today. Let's see what is fresh off the press this morning. We begin with the bold paper. This is what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation, but the Standard this morning. Revealed junior secondary school was grade 9 headache. Worlds apart, a survey has revealed that the sorry state of junior secondary school implementation in public schools compared to private ones, even as it emerges that the government may be considering moving grade 9 to current secondary schools to take advantage of their teachers, classrooms and laboratories that will be left idle after this year's KCSE candidates leave. This story, though, you want to follow it on page 2, 3 and 4 of the Standard today. And we have a bite here from Akelo Misori, Kupet General Secretary, or Secretary General, saying we have a lot of underutilized resources in secondary schools. While primary schools are struggling, this includes trained teachers and infrastructure. And the big task Ezekiel Machogo, Education Secretary, is facing right now is this headache of a junior secondary school, and how grade 9, of course, will also be giving them a niggling worry. State adverts plan death blow for free media. States adverts plan death blow. Death blow, I should say, for free media. The ICT Ministry has directed all ministries and state agencies to place adverts in one newspaper, spelling the death knell for major dailies and denying readers government announcements. That is a story that you have on page 9. We shall be looking at this. What has really informed this that one daily should be getting this particular tender, so to speak, from the Ministry of ICT. That story is tucked away on page 9 of the Standard today. One was shown by Mount Kenya's lone voice of defiance on the national pages of Standard today. Riotless riot act to rebel ODM leaders. This is on page 10 of the Standard. UK to loan back Ghana's looted jewels. That is on page 40 of the Standard. AFCON last 16. Surprises in football fiesta. You have a story on 51 and 52, the sports pages of the Standard today. This is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy for yourself. And you have the Polls magazine for the young and young at heart. All that juicy story on entertainment are all also splashed inside today's Standard. This is how it looks. Let's see what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation. Who's fooling whom? That's the probing question. Slippery Mountain Kenya Kwanza leaders are touring Meru as infighting rages. War within. Factional feuds have rocked the governing party, with Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua seemingly under fire from some lawmakers curiously fronting Kiharo MP Ndidi Nyoro. The surprise boldness of rebels to take on the number 2 in government has got tangs working. Questions persist about a hidden force, even as President Ruto steps in to calm the tide. You have a story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. And also governors, MCAs splashed an extra 13 billion shillings on luxuries. Even when we're talking about the economy being in the doldrums right now, a report by Controller of Budgets Margaret Nyakango on the first 4 months in office for newly elected county officials shows counties cumulatively spent 67.47 billion shillings, an increase from 54.89 billion shillings during a similar period the previous year. However, the report flags non-priority expenses like landscaping, beautification of buildings, seating allowances, and 3 billion shillings travel packs for MCAs. The story continues on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. Tragedy. Man recounts the horror of watching his daughter and granddaughter die in house fire. That is a story that you want to follow on page 3. A very heart-wrenching story. And judges vow to resist attacks by ruling party. It's a fight back. The Kenya Magistrates and Judges Association condemns attacks on the judiciary by politicians and vows its members will not be intimidated from discharging their mandate. You have the story that continues on page 6 of the Daily Nation this morning. Looking at the side, but there, gunmen kill Laikipia rancher. Renowned rancher Lucy Jennings died yesterday in a hospital in Nyahururu, where she was being treated for gunshot wounds following an attack by raiders on Sunday. And on football, we have knockout stage of Africa Cup of Nations beckons as giant killers look to extend run. That story continues inside on page 46 and 47 of the Daily Nation. And also you have the voice inside the Daily Nation this morning. This is how it looks. Let's see. You can get all the details inside the Daily Nation. We have a Star up next. When is strangled, cut into pieces? This is what the autopsy is revealing. Chief pathologists say, he says blunt object was used to bruise her scalp. Her neck bones also were fractured. The story continues on page 2. How I created 750,000 jobs in 3 sectors, says Ruto. You can see him hard at work here, building the nation. President William Ruto and Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua laying the foundation stone for Timao affordable housing project in Buri, Meru County on Thursday. You can follow the story on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. British Army in Nanyuki, I should say, reports diarrhea outbreak. 172 affected. Also, Kenya receives a 9.5 billion shillings boost to address persistent blackouts. That is, Kenya's efforts to end incessant blackouts have received a major boost after the African Development Bank and the United Kingdom announced 9.5 billion shillings funding. In recent past, nationwide blackouts have hurt domestic users, businesses, and disrupted operations of critical infrastructure such as airports. That story continues inside the Star. Premature 2027 campaigns, Kenya Kwanza roads to self-destruction. Kenya Kwanza's roads to self-destruction. And cost of living, Ruto's nightmare. That is what Siasa Pullard magazine is focusing on inside the Pullard magazine that you can find it tucked away in today's Star. People Daily, how Fresh Health Plan will affect you. This is all about social protection. It will be mandatory for every Kenyan resident to register for new insurance scheme that will see them pay higher rates pegged on employment status, age, income, starting April the 4th. That is a story to want to follow inside the People Daily this morning. Also, CS Kindiki shuffles 32 top officers. That is all on page 5 of the People Daily. And just to give you a snippet of what the legislation on the Social Health Insurance Fund is all about, within 90 days upon the coming into office of these regulations, every person resident in Kenya shall apply for registration as a member of SHIF. Every member or every resident shall be a member of SHIF. 300, that is a list amount in Kenya's shilling. One will be required to pay to the scheme 16 billion shillings, the amount of money that the NHIF owes both public and private entities. And that also seemed to be, so to speak, the going concern that will be inherited by SHIF, the 16 billion shillings monies. All right, we have also inside plot to oust Kupen officials. That continues inside the People Daily this morning on page 6. Taifa Leo, Mackenzie alichapa watoto wafe. Nakala za mashtaka zasema mhubiri tata aliwazaba makofi na kuwacharaza viboko akiwalazimisha kufunga. It's all about what is ongoing right now. Mahakama ya watoto yaelezwa kuwa mshukiwa mkuu na wenzake waliwatesa watoto wenye umri wa miaka 6 hadi 17 katika funga hadi ufe. That is the story that you want to follow on page 2 of Taifa Leo this morning. Majaji wakataa mwafaka wa Ruto Koome. You can read the story on page 2 also of Taifa Leo this morning. Zari the boss lady kafanya nini mara hii? Well, it's all about some juicy stories there inside Taifa Leo. And Rita Waini alinyongwa kwanza. That story continues on page 3 of Taifa Leo this morning. Let's buckle down to some business where the Business Daily is holding the splash on IMF in new tax onslaught on rich Kenyans, large investors. Lender argues tax incentives hurting revenue expansion. Report lays ground for more taxes on the wealthy. Multiple tax incentives and exemptions handed out to the ultra-wealthy and large investors in the past decade are undermining Kenya's ambition to grow revenue, the International Monetary Fund has said. The IMF, in a new analysis of tax policy and administrative changes in the East African Community countries, says that Kenya's tax to GDP ratio has been on downward trajectory since peaking in 2014 after the country implemented policies that have ended up narrowing the tax base. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. EABL cuts dividends as profit dips 22%. East African Breweries PLC cut its interim dividends by 73.3% to 1 shilling per share. After posting lower earnings in the half year to December 2023, the company had paid an interim dividend of 3.75%, 3.5%, not percent, but shillings per share a year earlier. Insurer shocks PSV with cashless fares. Public service vehicles insured by Direct Land Assurance will have to switch to cashless fare platforms as insurer moves to curb fraudulent claims related to injuries and deaths. And 70 billion shillings bond test resolved to cut borrowing. This is a story that you want to follow on page 15 of the Business Daily this morning. German coffee firms shut Kenya operations on sector reforms. A global coffee miller has announced plans to shut its operations in Kenya next month as the bungled government-backed reforms in the coffee sector continue to disrupt the industry. NKG Coffee Mills Kenya, a member of Germany's Newman Coffee Group A, says it will lay off staff by end of February, citing recent regulation changes in the industry after the implementation of the Coffee Regulations 2019 and Capital Markets Regulations 2020. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. This is our looks. We cross over to Uganda, where the PLE results are out, and the best of PLE also splashed on the front page of the Daily Monitor this morning. Congratulations to them. Top school students. The 2023 primary leaving examinations showed that boys did better than girls again, with Education Minister Janet Museveni seeking answers on the dropouts. You have a story on page 24 of the coverage today. Shasha Itungo, Victoria's Primary School there. We have Kevin Koruhanga, Light Academy, that is in Uganda as well. And the best PLE schools also have been listed here. El Shaddai PS, they have their percentage there, 100%. Division 1, 160. I'll leave it for you to decipher this. St. Mukasa Seminary, also Toro parents. Kasana Junior School, Kisoso parents. The list goes on and on. If you're waking up in Uganda, you have the full list also that continues inside the Daily Monitor this morning. Also remember to grab a copy for the Scope magazine that will inform you all about entertainment. Foot and mouth diseases spread to 32 districts. MPs asks why. That is in Uganda. In Tanzania, Samia's goal of attracting 1 billion shillings Indonesia investments. Speaking during the Indonesian-Tanzania Investment and Business Forum in Jakarta yesterday, she tasked her lieutenants with raising the value of Indonesian investments in Tanzania to $1 billion in the shortest time possible. You have the story on page 2 of The Citizen if you're waking up in Tanzania. Experts explain higher science pass rates in 2023 Form 4 exams. All that tucked away inside The Citizen. And tariff offer delays could hit after rollout. That also is inside The Citizen as well. In Rwanda's milk production exceeds 1 million tons. More than 81 million liters of milk were supplied to milk processing plants in 2022 and 2023. You have a story on page 3. Guinea President Doumbouya visits Rwanda. You can see him here. President Paul Kagame welcoming his counterpart, Mamadi Doumbouya of Guinea, on his arrival at Kigali International Airport on Thursday. Doumbouya is in Rwanda for a 3-day official visit that aims at strengthening friendship and cooperation between the two countries. All that also is inside the New Times in Rwanda. How conservancy areas outside Akagera will foster wildlife awareness is a story that you need to follow as well inside the New Times. And the East African friends again, despite apparent thawing of relations between Kenya and Uganda, they are sticking points in the fuel import stocks. Kampala wants a license for UNOC, but Nairobi says the Ugandan marketers should embrace competition from Kenyan companies, and there are cases also in the courts. The story continues on page 5 of the East African this week. And Test for Democracy as 19 African states go to polls is another story that you want to follow inside the East African as well. And finally, let's see what we have on the front page of China Daily. Xi, Macron eye stronger ties. Leaders underline global implications of Sino-French relations on 60th anniversary. You can read all of that inside the China Daily as well. President's letter inspires grateful Kenyan students. That is also on the front page of the China Daily. Jamlik Mwangi Kariuki, a 26-year-old Kenyan, has always wanted to find a way to express appreciation for the great opportunities he has received through his special bond with China, which started in 2018. Kariuki, who is from Webuye, a town in Western Kenya, was one of the second group of 100 Kenyans who were sponsored to study engineering in China for 4 years. They went back after graduation to contribute to the African country's railway construction and maintenance, built with Chinese technology and to Chinese standards. The 480-kilometer Mombasa-Nairobi standard gauge railway, a flagship project of the China Proposed Belt and Roads Initiative, was the first railway constructed in Kenya since the nation's independence in 1963. Right. Is that true, what is being announced by the China Daily here? Truly. Yes, we shall be looking at this so also with counterparts. Let's see what we have as the editorial cartoons. Oh, I didn't tell you, I don't deal with IMF or the World Bank. All right, and you can see patched on the belly there of President Ruto, as it's being depicted by Victor, is a chameleon. I wonder if you can identify this chameleon, right? That is in shades, or the changing faces or the changing colors of a chameleon. I can see Professor Naituli is straining to see. Let me try and zoom in for that. You cannot really identify this chameleon, can you? Right? Of course, this is a lizard. We shall be looking at that as well momentarily.
It's totally
all right, and then we have also the shilling actually is on ICU. Right, someone's phone is going off. Dollar pressure is now at 160 and rising. That is what it is also inside the Star this morning. All right. Those are some of the editorial cartoons that we do have this morning, and we shall be looking at them momentarily. But let's see what we have as stories of the days. You want to say something?
I'm just looking at the shilling being on the bed. Is that ICU which?
Yes, this is ICU. It's actually on ICU. It's on drips.
The shilling is on the ICU.
Yes. You as an economist, what will you say?
Well, I mean, it is. Actually, it's more than ICU. I don't know that it's always being willed to the motion.
That you mean?
Yeah, because I think on Monday, we were interviewed a team of economists with Bloomberg, and all of us agreed that the shilling will be 200. And that is going to cause a lot of trouble. So I don't know whether when you look at those two doctors, is there any doctor there capable of getting the shilling out of that place? Or they are the very reason why the shilling is in ICU? Because if you are the cause of the trouble, you cannot solve it, because science has it that you cannot solve a problem using the very tools that has created the problem. So if bottom-up economic model is the very reason why the shilling is in the ICU, can the bottom-up economic model get it out of there? Or should they confess that this was not actually an economic model and really become honest and agree and confess? Because the Bible is clear, if you confess as a country, I'll heal your land.
All right, so we've had also this chameleon that has been pointing towards the IMF and saying, you know, the woes that we have as a country as far as the economy is concerned, it's because of a policy of the IMF. Barak Moluka.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dibal. I think we need to face our situation with candor, be very candid, and accept, for example, that the IMF has always been part of the problems. We need to accept that the problems have not begun today. I usually get very puzzled when we take rather narrow views of our challenge here. The problems we have in this country of an economic nature go right back to the independence years, the policies that we embraced, the conditionalities that we accepted from the IMF, the World Bank, the so-called Paris Club. They also pertain to corruption and theft by people in power since those days up to where we are. And I get puzzled sometimes when I listen to people like my good friend, the professor here. trying to suggest that these things began yesterday with William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua. They may be part of the problem. It is possible that bottom up could be wrong. It is possible that bottom up is not working and that it will not work anyway. But we must look at this thing broadly and accept that it goes right back to where we have come from. That the patient we are seeing there is a patient who got into hospital when he was already sick, and this particular set of doctors arrived when this patient was already sick. They are perhaps clueless about what should be done about the patient, but that broadly speaking, if you go to a doctor, they will ask you, when did you start feeling like this? They will in fact even ask you whether there's somebody in your family who has had certain symptoms and certain conditions. The history of where you have come from with your circumstances is very important
as well. That is to blame.
It's the entire rubric, the way it has been. And if you listen to people in this country carefully, you will hear them to be suggesting that if you remove these guards today and put there other guards, it will now be different. It cannot be. The problem we have in the country is systemic, that you need to completely revolutionize the system. And revolutions are not about removing certain individuals and replacing them with others. That's the experiment we have been carrying out throughout, and to that extent, in a very limited way, I agree with Professor Ogola that you cannot keep on doing the same thing and expecting different results, where the same thing here is changing guards and imagining that it's going to be different. We need fundamental change.
All right, so I'm just trying, before we come to Professor Gitila Naitule, where I have this particular, the presser from Atwoli, or Kotu, so to speak, and he raises some of these issues that are actually bedeviling the economy right now: high interest rates, dwindling international trades, persistent unemployment, and higher level of redundancy. I'm looking for where he's saying the dormancy of institutions. Where he says, with the current challenges facing Kenya, workers opine that the institutional dormancy is to blame. Among the question workers are asked include, where is the national treasury when the cost of living is becoming unbearable for the workers in Kenya? What is the Directorate of Debt Management in the National Treasury doing as Kenya's public debts crosses the 10 trillion shillings mark? Where is the Directorate of Budget, Fiscal and Economic Affairs of the National Treasury when the interest rates and the exchanges rates are going out of hand? Where is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission at the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions when the corruption is the order of the day in Kenya? Where is the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection when many Kenyans remain unemployed and redundancy becomes the order of the day in Kenya? Well, we can see also a German farm now is closing shop here in the country. Many will be facing also, or the heads will roll as far as redundancy is concerned next month. So these are questions which are being asked. And even as we speak, the Directorate of Debt Management is resigning from the Treasury.
Let me just say this. The truth is, the answer is actually the bottom-up economic model. Problem is, it's not being implemented. You see, what does the bottom-up mean? The bottom-up economic model was supposed to address the fundamental economic structures, which we have not used. I want to agree with my friend here, Baraka Muluka, that we haven't concentrated on from independence. And that, what did that mean? That meant you rationalize taxation, okay? Because once you rationalize taxation, because taxation is going to be used to prop the economy or to control it when it's overheating. That has not been done, so the taxation is completely irrational, and you can expect the shilling will respond to that irrationality. The other thing about the bottom-up model was actually to address issues of patriotism, so that what we concentrate on is Kenyan. We promote Kenyans, and especially we address the most vulnerable people. So every time you steal money, you have to steal it in foreign currency. You are not being patriotic, and that means the shilling will respond to the marriage, which will take place, because usually depositing money outside is always in foreign currency. You see, the shilling is supported by foreign reserves. So when the foreign reserves are being looted, you can expect the shilling to get sick, because they have to respond to that. So the other thing in the bottom-up economic model needed to do is to address issues of education, because education is the ultimate equalizer of everyone. Okay? So when the government removes itself from manageable cost in education, you will expect the shilling to respond. The other fundamental was to address energy costs, especially transport. Meaning when you address that, you allow the Kenyans to easily access the market, to easily sell their wares, and therefore expand the space of business and expand the tax base. Again, energy cost has not been addressed. Nobody is even thinking about it. So you can expect the market will anticipate nothing will happen, and therefore the production, the increase in the production, which is supposed to net more foreign reserves by selling our surplus, is undermined because of the energy cost. So the bottom-up model, we abandoned it after the government came into office, but it's campaigned on that model, and that was a good model if that model was implemented.
All right, Professor Kennedy.
I tend to maybe differ a bit, because I think we as Kenyans, we are very good at making criticism on issues of anything. And I think if we have maybe a healthy debate with the structures that are there, because most of these critics or criticism, they are coming from people, maybe individuals. Of course, they have a right of making those raising those concerns. But you see, sometimes they are not taken seriously, because maybe the structures, and like what you are reading there about, where this where is judiciary, where is this department, where this, or all these departments, and if the institutions are working, and because they have the constitutional mandate to make things work, I think we could be very far. But the challenge we have in our country is that anything we make, critical comments, but these comments, they don't go very far, because they keep on just making people think, but even if we think, we don't make change. So what I think is that I think we need to analyze these issues as a country, and the institutions that are constitutionally, are put in place to be enabled to work. And if they are working and they work together, then that's what we call the government. So, but when a government is something amorphous, when people say, oh, the government is not doing that one, the government, government is not an individual, because it's all of us. We are part of the government. But there are those people who are elected, or maybe they are selected or appointed, whichever method is used, to act in various capacities, so that they work together and then bring issues that will help the economy to improve. But as far as I think there's a lot of politics in the whole, in the whole issue of economy. This is not happening, and there is a lot of blame game. And one person cannot change the whole country, but they have to give policies that can guide people on what to do.
But other jurisdictions, they don't want to know. If you look at what is happening now with the current elections in America, I think the economy is the biggest ticket. That if actually is in the doldrums, it will determine whether you'll come back as a president or not. And we can see it seems the pointers and success is also not for, even Donald Trump, looking at the polls and the recent also states that made their decision, Iowa and New Hampshire as well.
Let me just say this quickly. The role of IMF in this debate we're having here is first, why IMF usually is resistant, why the countries resist the IMF, it is to the advantage that the shilling depreciates. Because every time the shilling depreciates, our debt automatically has to increase because it's in foreign currency.
All right, Barack.
Well, it's interesting that you bring in the American angle because I think it only helps to lend further credence to what Professor Kindiki is saying, that there's a lot of dirty politics in the wash, and it helps only to lose, make people lose focus of the fundamental issues that they should be addressing. If you look at the American economy where it is today, the experts will tell you that it is far, far stronger today than it was when President Donald Trump was leaving office 3-4 years ago. Yet you can see that he still has got his following. Of course, when you look at the performance, it's not exactly where one would expect it to be on his part, if you could refer to him as some kind of incumbent in this particular case. If you look at New Hampshire, he should have had a proper, thoroughgoing landslide against Nikki Haley. 52% against 45% or thereabout is not very good for him, but you can see he still has his following. If I was thinking Republican in the United States, I would get worried because I think if Nikki Haley were to be the candidate, she probably would give Joe Biden a race for his political monies. But again, there are the politics, and the politics have got other things that have very little to do with the economy, and I think that is the context in which we are operating in this country. Even within Kenya Kwanza itself, you are not seeing people arguing about issues of economy, issues of policy. You are seeing people arguing about issues of who should occupy which seat, who should succeed who in which year. The same is what you are seeing within Azimio. Once again, the politics. People are not talking about, for example, where a certain policy that is being pushed by Kalonzo Musyoka would be superior to one being pushed by Wamalwa Eugene, or why Kalonzo should support Raila for the rest of his life.
We'll come to those politics much, much later. But let's just look at the IMF issue, because we can see even in this editorial cartoon where the president is being now propped here to sharpen the knife. And we can see on the other side where the Secretary General or General Secretary of Court is saying, oh, I did tell you I don't deal with IMF or the World Bank. And even as a sharpening, I wanted just to cross over to what we have. IMF in new tax onslaught, also on rich Kenyans and large investors. The taxing the wealthy has been also a big ticket issue that looking at back in the 2022 was also an issue that was being looked into. I don't know, will this pushing of the envelope also really fly at the end of the day? Fred?
Yeah. So according to me, let's not take it simplistically. I'm very happy that all the people we have in this panel are very good scholars by all means. And one tentacle of scholarship is not to take things simplistically. And it cannot be one either or, by saying, is our problem it's a current administration or it is not. It is a multiplicity of all those things. And I would say that you have a reason to say that where we are now, you can explain it with the current administration because they took us from somewhere. So if you analyze between 13th of November 2022 and now, there is something these guys have done. Remember, the government collects revenue every day. What are they doing with it? Why do you always blame the past? So there's the part that this current administration has to deal with, because they promised us they'll get out of this place. The dollar was 123, now it's 160. Do you want to tell me that that difference can only be explained by the past? So it's neither the past nor the present only. These things to come together. But to talk about IMF, because I want to really focus on your point, Debal. As an economist, I work with the European Central Bank for around 5 years, experience on turning around the economy. Do you know that Europe itself never turned to IMF to help them during the serious global financial crisis of the pigs, that's Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain? Why didn't they go to IMF and World Bank? If you go to the loan book of IMF and World Bank, who is the biggest borrower there? It's Africa. And it would even tell it developing countries. And I am here sitting with very qualified people. They should give me evidence of any single country that was in serious economic turmoil and was turned around by World Bank or IMF. There is zero. There's no history of that.
That's where it started. The
so
entire
even
Marshall Plan.
so even if my brother Bassett Muluka want to say that it could have been that the IMF is not to blame, we're just asking, which country do you know as an economist that IMF went inside and turned it around? But I'll tell you a country that European Central Bank went and changed. America don't borrow money as much as we borrow from IMF and World Bank. Yes, these are Bretton Woods institutions. What do Americans know that we do not know? During Kibaki avoided more borrowing from IMF and World Bank, because these financial institutions tend to give what's called conditional loans. They give you a loan when you are in trouble. Do you want to have a father that waits when your academic life, social life, everything is in shutters, then they come and say, I want to help you? But you see, European Central Bank and these other financial institutions, which are non-Bretton Woods institutions, they come and give you precaution by telling you, Debal, in 2 years from now, if you don't read this book, your studies may not go right. So sort of helping you to avoid being in turmoil. And IMF and World Bank now is looking at the Kenyan current situation where we are not able to pay anything, and the amount of money they are pumping to us when we are in trouble is more than they will pump to us when we are in less trouble. And that simply tells you, as an economist, it's not the right route to take. And they are sharpening their knives because they are seeing that there's blood. They are seeing that there is an opportunity here. If you look at, since the current government took office, how much money has come from IMF to Kenya alone compared to any other country? The loan book has shifted more to Kenya because Kenya has trouble, because they are opportunists. When they see you having trouble, they sharpen their knife. Like you smell blood, then you go for it. Sharks do that very well when they are in the water. So if you ask me, I think we should be looking for how not to take this route that IMF and World Bank is working in Kenya. And my biggest problem with the bottom-up is that when you read Professor Njuguna Ndung'u's budget, if you just read his budget speech, the one he read, he began by saying, I take this chance to thank our development partners, and I single out. That was his speech, just from the beginning when he was in Parliament reading the budget. I single out World Bank and IMF for 3 things. 1, structural adjustment. 3, for policy direction. And 2 is policy direction. 3, for resources. When IMF and World Bank determines the policy of a country, these people are lending money. Tell me the day the bank will come and tell you, I want to lend you money for your best interest, but take the interest aside. A bank comes to look for how can they make money from you. They are looking at your wallet and say, which share wallet can I take? So when someone is the one giving a policy direction to a country, where did Kenya's economic fiscal policy go to? Did they look at the Kenyan fiscal policy, the Vision 2030, the direction we're supposed to go? According to me, that's wondering. And just to go to your point a little bit, then I can allow other people to pick up. why I'm very much afraid of Kenya is that Kibaki is known as the father of modern economy. And Kibaki gave the best thing to this economy. But he nearly lost the election, second time. So is Kibaki the problem or us? Are the leaders the issue? So according to me, the problem is not the leaders. The issue is leadership. And leadership is a shared role between different people. If everybody could just be decent to their work, for example, the debt management, the treasury. Decency means what you're supposed to do it rightly without considering who is in charge of the country, then everything will go right.
Right. So is there any heat that is coming off from Treasury that the debt management director had to, that is Harun Sirisi, had to actually resign before his time? He's just meant to be retiring, I think, some few days, but he's opted to resign before that.
Well, you know, I want to agree with him that once you surrender yourself to the International Monetary Fund, you have actually converted your country into a client state. And that's what they want to do. I can tell you, the economists at the IMF are very well educated. They have good economists. They know exactly what they are doing. And our president had an answer to them during the campaign. Okay, he said, when I say UNDA, you say pesa mfukoni. In simple economics, what that meant is people who have sufficient disposable income to spur production. IMF doesn't want you to do that because they know once you spur production, you can get yourself out of being their client. Okay? So what do they do? They tell you tax, and when you tax, you are taking money from people. When you are taking money from people, you are stopping them from consuming and therefore spurring production. So what Professor here said is he wanted a single country which IMF has guided to prosperity. The truth is zero. Every country, whether you go to Sri Lanka or go to Argentina or go to Chile the other day, every country that surrendered itself to IMF, the country eventually collapses. Okay? So I think this is the time to bite the bullet here, control government expenditure, and get ourselves out of the IMF conditionalities. What it means is that instead of having 3.6 trillion in budget, why can't we have a 2 trillion in budget? In order for us not to rely on anybody's loan, so that we control ours, because even in your own house, when you are in trouble, you are supposed to stop spending. So what is happening here? We continue like this, we are going to collapse this economy probably in 2 years' time, or less. Right now, what makes us look like we are doing well is simply there is sufficient rain, so the vegetables are plenty. By 2025, the drought cycle will set in. Okay, and when the drought cycle sets in, there's an inflation which look like right now, even though the shilling is depreciating, the inflation is controllable. It's going to go haywire. So the people near the president, because he's the primary policy maker, I think listening to Professor Gindege saying the government is everyone. You remind him of a Kikuyu song.
The government is everywhere.
I want to remind him to go and listen to a Kikuyu song which says that, it is even Aguilera saying actually, that our pot, which is being cooked by everyone, eventually it will, nobody will remove it from the fire, so the food will basically burn.
Or cook forever.
Or cook forever. Even the shit burn. So the thing is this, what we need to do to get out is accept we have a problem, strictly control government expenditure seriously, rationalize our tax system, forget about these fellows. These fellows want a client, and we have agreed to be their client. We have surrendered our policy making to them.
Thank you.
And we will eventually collapse unless we can change the route.
Right, we want to take a short break, and I was just also reading from the Washington Wall Street Journal actually yesterday, says that China is pushing banks lending in effort to expand the economy. China's central bank outlined new steps to boost bank lending to households and businesses, an early move in what is expected to be a broad but restrained campaign by authorities to prop up growth this year after lackluster 2023. It comes on the heels of signs of gathering government support for China's swooning stock market, with investors dictating a rush of share buying by pension funds, insurance, and other state-linked firms. If we spur growth, we put them in the banks, and the people, of course, start getting these loans at a very affordable interest rates. That will spur the growth, and I think also that was the model of Kibaki then, where there was a lot of flash funds to aid business, as it were. We take a short break. When we circle back, we shall be looking at one institution as well, that according to Atoli, we have institutional dormancy, but IBC is in the doldrums as far as the constitutional crisis is concerned, not commissioners yet, and we have some seats that have not actually been filled right now because of the lack of capacity, so to speak,